Everybody, this is Scott Dudley from SaaS Startup Stories, and today my special guest is Joseph Fung, who's based in Ontario, Canada. Joseph is the founder and CEO of Yavarrow, which is a sales training platform that accelerates careers in tech sales, and also Kite, which is a training platform to provide sales teams with the information they need to ramp up quickly and increase funnel velocity. Welcome to the show, Joseph. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh, I'm so ready, Scott. Thank you for having me.
All right, perfect. Sounds great. So yeah, as usual, let's start off with your background and what initially got you interested in starting a tech company.
For sure. So I'm a recovering software engineer. I went to school for engineering, but during one of my first jobs, saw how stressful it was for big companies when they're bringing in new leadership. And I thought to myself, you know what, I can do better than this. So launched my own business, and I've got 4 companies under my belt, all on the tech side of things. And candidly, I just can't imagine doing anything else now.
You love it. It's in the blood. Yeah. Awesome.
It is. It is. You just can't stop.
Nice. All right. So just sort of wondering how you got things off the ground initially. So did you borrow VC money to launch your current tech companies, or did you bootstrap them instead? So yeah, how did you sort of get them off the ground?
For sure. I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, my first couple of companies were bootstrapped, was lucky to bring in venture capitalists for subsequent. And this specific company, the original funding was from me and my co-founders, and we did raise venture. We were lucky enough to bring in some of the investors we worked with before and some executives that we've known in the ecosystem. So really friendly institutional money. And that's been a real delight.
Just curious, so it's a little bit sort of stressful, using other people's money like that and expecting it to produce a result, or
Oh my goodness, yeah.
yeah.
Holy cow, yeah. With our last company, the previous one, it was exceptionally stressful because we'd spent almost nothing. So the only money in the company was outside investor money, and that was a huge amount of responsibility. With this company, we put in the original seed capital was our own. So you feel more aligned.
Yeah.
On the flip side, when you've done it a couple of times, the expectations grow. And so everybody expects bigger, faster.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, the more you do it, then yeah, it's a different story. Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
All right, interesting. Yeah. All right, so let's sort of get into a bit more of the specifics about both your companies, Yavarrow and Kite, and sort of what are the differences and similarities between the two?
For sure, for sure. So Kite is a sales playbook company. So to kind of break it down to brass tacks, if you imagine how you might onboard a sales team, typically there's some presentations to watch, to read, some videos, some documents. You say, memorize all this, shadow a couple of reps, and then go sell. And that's tough. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So the Kite platform makes it easy for you to effectively give a sales rep a cheat sheet for how you run a discovery call, how you run your demos, and those cheat sheets evolve based on the deal, the segment, the vertical. So it helps your reps ramp faster. Pure SaaS platform, per user, per month, multiple editions. It's a freemium offering. We get to work with some incredible companies, powers 6,500 sales playbooks across North America.
Nice.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Neat part of it is the go-to-market strategy was heavy channel-based. So almost half our sales were done by sales trainers who would go in, deliver some training, leave our software behind. So great partnership. What we found is every tech company in our customer base, every single one, was struggling with hiring well-trained sales professionals. And so we worked with those trainers, built out an amazing curriculum, and launched Yavarrow, a training program that helps ramp people up on how to sell tech, how to sell software, and then introduces them to tech companies who are great jobs. And so the two companies are very closely related, although they're very different go-to-market strategies. Yeah. It's like B2B on one side, B2C on the other, selling into a specific segment, sales on one, selling to a consumer with a high velocity deal on the other. It's a fun balance to have.
Okay, yeah, I had a bit of a look at the Yavarrow website, and it actually got me sort of interested, but then I noticed that it's mainly really for North America, and I guess it would still work for international, but it's really designed for North America, isn't it?
Yeah, so the curriculum is very applicable. I mean, the way an Australian software company sells is very similar to a Canadian or an American one. The difference, though, is almost 90% of our students aren't paying for tuition up front. they're paying in an income share agreement. So they pay a percentage of their base salary after they land a full-time job. We feel so confident in doing that, partially because we have such a rich network. And our network is predominantly North America. And so the curriculum applies, but candidly, we know that we can best influence the employment opportunities in North America, so we're focusing there to start.
That's a great deal for the students too. I mean, you know, to actually get them into the program, it would certainly stop a lot of objections that the average sort of sales training company would have.
It stops a lot of objections,
Yeah.
but moreover, it opens up the talent funnel in a way that no other program has. When I look at the age, gender, ethnic diversity, on all factors,
Yep.
the composition of our classes is so heartwarming. Like we talk about how do we solve the diversity problem in tech, and I get to see it every single day, how it's changed, and it's so cool.
Nice, very rewarding. Yeah, awesome.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. So, how many employees do you have sort of on both companies?
We're at 20 FTE. That's a combination of full-time locally, but also geographically spread. It has become an international company incredibly quickly. The whole work from home and COVID situation has really changed the hiring pipeline. So that's interesting to see too.
And I guess some or maybe all of those employees would be working for both sort of companies, because it's a very sort of similar but different sort of
it is.
Companies. Yeah.
Two very different go-to-market motions, but from a corporate organization perspective, they're definitely intertwined. So there's definitely some shared responsibilities. Like we don't need two CFOs, for example.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a benefit in a lot of ways. Yeah.
It is, and the two reinforce each other. On the training side of things, we get to use our own technology. So we get to actually train and measure our students like they would as a sales professional. Super cool. And then on the software side of things, every single customer that's rolling out new sales playbooks, when they need to augment their sales team, they get a direct access to an incredible pipeline of talent. So two very reciprocal service offerings, even though they serve very different target markets.
Yeah, nice. Okay. So without disclosing any of your secrets, just sort of curious about your product roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months. Is there anything that you can tell us about that?
For sure. One of the cool things that we really get to see is in the classroom environment, we get to see really closely how reps, not just experienced, but brand new reps are using the platform. So on the tech side, we've got a ton of features, a ton of changes to help individuals and smaller companies. So that's really exciting, because helping companies level up their enablement activities from ground zero is very rewarding. So that's a lot of fun, a lot of individual ones. But then the second thing is we're going to be continuing to take the curriculum, the content from our classes, and exposing more and more of that online. So without getting too specific, some of the tools that we use for our students, like pre-recorded sessions, materials, we do expose some of that stuff online. So I'm not revealing anything secret. If people go to ondemand.yavarrow.com, they can see a lot of our class content. But the tools that we use to help match jobs, help analyze the state of the tech sales job ecosystem, we'll be exposing more of those to the public as well.
Nice. Okay. Sounds exciting. All right. And then as far as customer acquisition goes, what would you say your most successful sort of customer acquisition channels, and how did you find them?
It's so interesting how different they are between the two sides of the business. Yeah.
Okay.
So on the software side of things, our content marketing, inbound interest, it's a freemium product. So like a lot of freemium products would be using, like blogs, webinars, go to conferences, host a dinner. A lot of that is pretty typical. We're typically targeting someone in a sales ops or enablement function, and there are associations and groups that we can participate in. And that's been predictable, but it's a longer nurturing process. And so you're taking a look at a sales cycle that's almost 4 months on average. Whereas on the training side of things, the consumer side of things, when people are at a point of transition, they're talking to friends, they're looking around for job opportunities, they're looking for resume help. So ads, search, and social have been our primary, most effective lead gen approach. And because it's an individual purchase, there's no team, self-discretion, the average sales cycle is more closer to 15 days. So we're looking at two very different selling motions. One that has a combination of kind of an SDR, an AE, heavy demo focused, so a lot of technical activities, and the other that's more full cycle, and it's more about managing volume than it is about managing a process.
Okay, interesting. And then on the other side, with retention, how do you approach reducing churn and retaining paying customers?
The really big thing is continuing to invest. One of the things that's been so critical for us, and I think this is more of a lesson from having done it a couple of times,
Yeah.
is it's easy to let your roadmap be driven by your sales. It's like, hey, I want to chase this segment. I hear this from a customer, and your roadmap becomes a sales tool, and that's okay. The problem is that your roadmap really fundamentally is about expansion in your accounts and retention. And so we've always really emphasized the idea that your roadmap is tied to customer retention and customer growth. And we've been really lucky to work with great companies like Roadmonk, who build incredible road mapping software, but also have a great understanding of that. And I think that's helped inform our philosophy a lot. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice, interesting. And what are the most common mistakes that inexperienced tech founders make, in your opinion?
We make so many mistakes. It's hard to know where to start.
Yeah.
But when I look back at maybe the mistakes that I've made and the ones that I've seen pop up with others, I think one of the big things that jumps out to me is not being deliberate about your culture. And I think this is a big one for me because I see the negative consequences really badly. Yes, you can scale a company without being deliberate about your culture, but a culture evolves whether you want it to or not.
That's true.
And yeah, you see this. You see companies that get to 100, 1,000 people, and they look in the mirror and they say, you know what, this is not what we wanted to create. And at that point, trying to change direction is so hard. And you see it in the diversity, the makeup, the ethos, the work ethic. So being deliberate early on, I mean, right when you're founding it, writing down, documenting what is the kind of culture, the kind of company we want to be, and what are the steps we need to do to get there. And a good way to think about it is you can never write your values down too early. You can definitely write them down too late.
Yeah.
And if you get it done early, it is going to save you so much heartache every step of the way.
Yeah, I guess that would sort of tie into the mission and purpose of the company as well, wouldn't it? Sort of why you're actually doing it in the first place.
That's it exactly. I mean, everyone gets, you write your vision and your mission down. I'm really glad. I rarely see companies not do that, but they rarely sit down and write down what are the values that we want our people to exhibit. And that's just as important.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so what was the biggest challenge you had to face when you first started your tech companies, and how did you go about overcoming it?
Ultimately, the biggest challenge is finding a market that wants to buy your product. Like, I'm sure I'm not the only founder who's listening to this podcast or who's been on the podcast and gets really enamored by a problem, a challenge. We've got this really interesting way of tackling it. And the reality is when you're first starting, you have the smallest amount of information. So you're most likely to be wrong about the product, about the market, about how to solve it.
The product market fit. Yeah.
It is. And the faster you can hunt it down, the more successful you're going to be. The raising money will happen. The bringing in customers will happen so long as you're staying vigilant on solving a problem people will pay for and doing that early. It's so easy, especially on your first company, to be convinced, very powerful belief that you've solved something uniquely and people are going to come and buy it. But you got to be ruthless with yourself about that and validate it and challenge your assumptions super early.
Yeah, so I've just recently read The Lean Startup. So I'm sort of wondering if you subscribe to what Eric Ries talks about in that book. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, great book. Agree with a lot of it. I have a slightly different approach that I use.
Okay.
Mostly because he has a lot of detail and a lot of great advice, and I can't keep all of that in my head. So I use a simpler framework. But the belief, I mean, his espousing and the way he characterizes early customer development is bang on. For me, in the early days, I distill it down to 3 questions, and I use that. So when I've done this a couple of times, I've used the same framework each time. I'll chat with early potential customers people who I think have the problem, I think I can solve.
Yeah.
And I cover 3 questions. The first one is, do I understand the problem right? So I'll explain in my own words what I think the problem is, maybe show an outline, maybe show some numbers, and ask them that. The second question is when I walk them through my solution, and I do this from a paper prototype stage to a digital one to an actual product, but every step of the way, I'll ask them, do I understand the solution right?
Right.
And usually, even just those 2 questions, I'll learn valuable things.
Yeah.
The hard part that I see a lot of people miss is the third one. How much would you pay for this if I had it right now? Because that helps you anchor not just the dollar value, but it helps you understand how they think about it. Because they'll say $20 a user a month, or 10 grand, or 5,000 a month, and that helps you think about how they'll buy it. And if you sell a product at the right price and sell it the way they want to buy and solve a real problem, you're gonna have a way easier time.
So if you spoke with 10 people, for example, would you just sort of take an average of what they've said and that would be the price that you'd start off with, or is that a bit too simple thinking?
Yeah, it's not too simple. Usually what I find is 10 isn't quite enough, because usually the first half dozen, I've understood the problem and the solution way wrong. So the price they give me is all over the place. But by the time I'm getting consistency in the problem and solution, the price comment actually usually gravitates. And moreover, what I've generally found is the actual price you could charge is double what they're coming back with you, because they're thinking about it as an early stage startup who does this. It's what they would just drop the money down, no questions asked. Usually that means there's still a lot of elasticity they're not thinking about. So they come back and they say, hey, $5 a user a month. You could put $10 a user a month on your website.
Okay. There's some good advice. Excellent. All right. So what are your favorite online tools and platforms that you use to run your business?
I mean, other than ours? So it's always a tough question when you're running a software company. I know.
Other than yours,
yeah. It's such a good question. So we're a very, very remote centric team, and because of that, we use a lot of the stereotypical tools. My favorite, if I did it by time, Slack, Zoom, Google Docs, the stereotypical ones.
Yes.
But I thought about this. I was like, what are some of the tools that we're using that have made a difference? And so I'll share this one for some of the other entrepreneurs. We care a lot about onboarding our team members, about giving a good experience. And so something we're using for our team and for our customers is a platform called Printfection. And they make it very easy for you to order swag, gear, and they'll warehouse it and fulfill it for you. We can send our customers, our employees a link, get them over their welcome package, onboard them, and we don't have to take care of all the fiddly details. So when I think about a little tool that's made a surprising big difference, I'm going to point to that one because that was a new find for me, and I'm happy to share that.
Okay, cool. I haven't heard of that one. Okay, what are you curious about or researching right now regarding sales and technology?
This is going to sound really boring, but I'm sinking a ton of time into it, and that's sales compensation.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why is we've seen it ourselves. So we're based in Ontario, Canada.
Yep.
But our most recent hires and interviews have been, Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. Not too much of a surprise, but also India, Cameroon, Malaysia. And in such a global environment now, thinking, do we anchor things based on Ontario, Canada salaries? Do we anchor things in the local marketplace? What are the compliance requirements, the recruiting needs? So just thinking about in a future where sales teams are incredibly remote and we see it, our students are getting hired everywhere. What are the long-term best practices around comp planning? So that's where I'm spending a lot of time, because I think every tech company out there, every scale up is going to have to figure out their philosophies about global compensation way faster than they're planning.
Yeah, because the currency, for example, in India is obviously a lot different to the US or Canada. So, it would be difficult to actually come up with an even or a fair salary package depending on sort of where people live, because for some people it's a lot of money, for other people it's not so much money. So I guess that would be a challenge.
It is. It's very hard. And you have very strong competing philosophies. The idea of, great, if you happen to work in a low cost area like Cameroon, should the salary reflect the cost of living and the competitive wages there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or do you subscribe to the idea of a dollar work is a dollar paid? And no matter where you are, you get paid fairly. And if you choose to live somewhere where the cost of living is lower, well, you benefit from that arbitrage. I don't know. There are some very interesting, difficult dilemmas. And so that's why it's an area of research and learning for me right now. And I do not have the answers yet.
Okay, interesting. Nice. All right, then, just to wrap up, where can people go to find out more about Yavarrow and Kite?
For sure. Folks can reach us on our websites first and foremost. So Kite is KIITE.ai. So that's where they can hit us up. And Yavarrow is at yavarrow.com, UVARO.com.
Cool. So just curious before you go, why are there two I's in Kite? Is there a reason for that, or does that mean something?
With all good names, there's really meaningful reasons. With Kite, we were building a platform to help reps learn, grow, and be more productive. And the way you help someone is first by listening to them. So Kite is actually the Japanese word kite, which means to listen.
Ah, okay. I see.
And of course, the domain names were available.
Yeah. Perfect. That makes sense. All right. Excellent. All right, then. Thanks for being on the show, Joseph. I really appreciate your time. That was fantastic.
Absolutely, Scott. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Take care.